Okay, did it actually work today? I think it might have. Let's see. Hi, everyone. If anyone's watching it, I'm just making sure this is actually live. It says live, so it's live. Yay! Oh my goodness, what a concept. Okay. Hi, everyone. It's Kara McCann here. I am the, um, oh no, hang on a second. I have it open on my phone because I'm trying to watch the comments at the same time. And apparently, I cannot multitask because I had the volume on my phone. So I was hearing an echo. Anyways, I'm Kara McCann. I'm the website designer and copywriter over here at Create Captivate. And today I am here to talk to you about questions to ask your website designer. Now, the questions that I'm going to be talking about in particular are all when you are looking for a website designer. So, before you just, a lot of people don't know what to look for. It can be hard to know exactly what questions to ask when you're looking for a very specialized service. So, I just want to go down some of the most common things and most important things that you want to make sure to ask ahead of time so that there aren't any nasty surprises or really any surprises. You kind of want to know what you're getting into. Doing a redoing, and this is if you're redoing a website, if you are just kind of gussying up a current website, like it doesn't matter. If you are going to be working with a new website designer, these are the questions you should be asking. So, one of the most basic ones is just kind of finding out what that designer's process is. So, what's your process? You want to know kind of what timeline they're going to be working with, make sure that it works within whatever timeline you have in mind. If there's a certain launch date that you're looking for, it's really important to let them know that ahead of time, but also kind of just find out their speed. You want to know how much they're going to be checking in with you. Are you going to hear from them at project's end once everything is all said and done? Are there going to be regular touch points? Are you going to get to see anything along the way? Understanding how all of that looks in that designer's process is really important, again, so you know what to expect so there aren't any big surprises. You also want to ask while you're discussing that process what types of things you might need to have prepared ahead of time. So, one of the most common things, well, a couple of the most common things and most important things when you're designing a website are going to be your branding, because without some kind of branding, you can't really do the website because you don't have anything to base it off of. Like the colors, the styles, the whole vibe. I've done websites for people who didn't have formal branding, only twice, and they were kind of unique situations where they had kind of a vibe in mind, but maybe not a full brand yet, but didn't want to go full branding. They just needed something up quickly. And in that case, I just went and found a color palette for them. But branding is that's not my wheelhouse. That's not really what I do. So you want to ask you want to know ahead of time that you are probably going to need some branding in place, and that your part of the process and part of what is going to be requested of you from that website designer is going to be your branding. So to have your font files all ready, do you own your font? Do you own your branding? Do you own your logo? Those are things that you're going to want to think about ahead of time because they are going to be needed. And we've talked about branding and all the things that you should be getting out of a branding package and things that you should have ownership of after your branding is done. Anything that your logo designer, that whoever did your branding provided to you, your web designer is probably going to need most, if not all of that, for different uses on the website. So logo, colors, like all your hex values or RGBs or whatever, the actual codes for your colors. And then all of if I didn't say your logo, your colors, and your font files, or at least what your font is, so that your web designer can go and find it somewhere, so that we can have your website be a perfect representation of your brand, because that's ultimately what it should be. So, all of those kind of go under that bigger like process category of what to expect going into it, what they'll need from you, what you need to ask them. And then, so, what do you need before you start? Finding out whether their websites are mobile responsive. That is a huge thing these days, is that most people look at websites on their phones. So, but web designers, we design on a computer. So, when we're looking at a design, we're looking at it, on our laptops, maybe on a desktop. In my setup at home, I have a laptop and a very large monitor. So that looks way different than when I'm pulling up my phone to check a website. And most people are on the go, they're on their phones, they don't want to open up their laptop to look at a site. So if they open your site and see that the buttons are halfway cut off because they're not shrinking down to scale, whatever device they're on, or you have a little teeny tiny line of text and they're supposed to tap on it, they're not going to be able to see that. Think about when you open up an email and you're trying to find the unsubscribe button for one of the spam emails that you get, and you have to zoom all the way in so that you can find that little tiny unsubscribe here. People don't want to have to do that on your website. They'll leave. They'll probably just leave. So finding out from your designer if your website design is going to be mobile responsive is very important. Also ask for examples. So a lot of times in proposals, when a web designer or any kind of marketing company sends you a proposal, they'll include some examples of their work. If they don't, or if you want to see more, feel free to ask. There's no harm in seeing what other kinds of work they've done. And just keep in mind that not all website designers maintain websites. They might just design them, and then the clients, will want to do their own maintenance. And so it might, however it's presented in a portfolio they may show you, it might look different if you go to actually look up that website. That's typically not the fault of the designer. We can't control things once they leave our hands. If we're not if we're not in charge of the maintenance, then there's only so much that we can do. So just bear that in mind, but it is good to have some examples that you can look at, and most web designers will have a portfolio. So, just skim through that. It'll probably be stills of different websites. So, you might not be able to see some of the elements that like move and interact, but it'll give you a good idea for their eye for design and style and everything. So, another great one to ask is, do you offer any services other than website design? So if you are looking for a website designer, but you don't have all that branding and colors and logo that we talked about before, then asking if the website designer provides any of those services, or if they work for a marketing agency of any kind, maybe somebody else in-house, so you can kind of keep it all in the family. And if they don't provide the additional services you need, then you just kind of need to know that you're going to need to have those pieces. You're going to need to have a backup plan for those. One of the other huge components to websites is copy. So if you're going to need copywriting on your page, and the website designer is only a designer and doesn't do words, then it's going to be really important that you either are prepared to write that copy yourself, or you have somebody on your team, or you are outsourcing to somebody else who can do that copywriting for you, because there are plenty of website designers who do write copy as well, but there are just as many, if not more, that don't. They're the design, the artistry, the make it pretty and beautiful and functional and responsive and all of that, everything that goes into design, but they don't necessarily write. So it's going to be important to have that in mind as well, especially because when it comes to copywriting, you want somebody who's really going to know your brand and be able to deliver that messaging properly. So if you don't feel comfortable doing that yourself, again, just know that you might need to plan for that, which is why we ask ahead of time, because you don't want to get to the middle of a website project and then have your designer say, by the way, I'm ready for all that copy, and you go, sorry, what? And weren't prepared for possibly needing that information or that service from somebody else. So let's see, what are some other big ones that we get? Will your website be SEO optimized? Most website designers should be capable of doing very basic SEO stuff. So we're talking about like title tags and meta descriptions, and anything that is going to help the search engines crawl your site. So we're talking, you don't have to do necessarily, we're not looking at like in-depth keyword research, but we are talking about using some obvious keywords for your website to make it stand out, and to make it just Google friendly. Like all of your images should also have any images that are displayed for like viewing that aren't just decorative, if they actually have a purpose, like within your homepage or within a blog post or whatever else. They need to have something called alt text. So that alt text is what's in place if you can't see an image. So if I were to put up a picture of myself with one of my cats, because why not? If I was to put up a picture of myself and one of my cats on a blog post on a website, then I would want to say, picture Kara holding a orange and black and white cat, while sitting in a chair. You want to have some kind of description, so that people know what was supposed to be there, because Google crawls those things. They will look for your images that don't have that little line of text, and they will ding you for ones that you're missing. So these are, again, things that your designer absolutely should know. All social links need to actually link to a live account somewhere. Those images need to have the alt text. You need to have proper headings on all of your web pages. You need to have meta descriptions for all of your main pages. This is everything that Google goes through and reads. You need to make sure that each of your pages have enough content. So, ask your website designer what they know. Ask them what they do to prepare that site to be SEO optimized, so that it is ready to go right out the gate, so you're not having to immediately hire somebody to go in and do all the SEO. SEO is a wonderful thing to invest in, but your site should be able to hold its own pretty much right from launch. So talk to your designer, make sure those pieces are in place, ask for their plan as to what all they're going to do, so that even if you don't understand all the technicalities, just knowing that they have a plan and that they are used to these kinds of things is going to be really important, and will probably give you some peace of mind. Ask them if they outsource anything. There are, obviously, if you're working with somebody just one-on-one, if it's literally just a person who designs websites and that's how they advertise and market themselves and everything, then it might be pretty straightforward that they are going to be the ones designing your website. However, if you're working with anybody who either seems to have a lot of business, given that they're just one person, or if you are working with any type of agency or firm, then ask if they outsource. I have worked for companies in the past where they did outsource a lot of their different types of services, and they were huge companies. And so some of the work was outsourced when we didn't have the manpower in-house, or if it just wasn't a skill set of anybody on staff at that time. At Create Captivate, everything's in-house now because we have a more robust team and everybody kind of wears a couple hats. So we do everything in-house, but if we were to ever have to outsource something, we would absolutely want to tell people that, so that it's not coming across as us offering a service. So ask your designer that. Say, are you going to be handling every aspect of my design? Are you sending this out to somebody to set up the hosting? Are you sending this out to somebody to do the SEO? Like, are you going to be the one actually working with me, or am I going to get an email from, Jane in Ohio saying that she's going to be handling my account or whatever? You want to make sure that the person you're meeting with and the person that you think you're doing business with is actually the person that you will legitimately be doing business with, because that's the person, whoever is going to be actually designing your website, is the person you need to be having this conversation with. And if you've heard that, a designer has a great reputation and then it turns out you don't even get to work with them, then that's not going to be the deal that you're looking for. So ask them if they do all their own work. If they are going to be outsourcing, ask them what and why, just so that you know that ahead of time. Some companies include rounds of edits or revisions, so that's another great question to ask. Asking about how many rounds are included, what types of edits are included. Everywhere's going to have a slightly different policy, but just know that typically you can't just edit 1,000 times. There can't be 10 rounds of revisions in most cases. So into that pricing structure, there will be some kind of restriction built in, so that you get those just along with the deal. And then if there's going to be anything else, then ask them, if we need to revise past that part, what's that cost going to look like? What does that process look like? All of that. Another great one, I have my whole list of questions, so sorry. These are a lot of the ones we get asked very often, so I'm trying to check off as many as I can. But another one that we get asked a lot is designing a site that fits within a certain budget. So a lot of times, a site has to be built we always want it to meet your needs. We always want it to do for you what you need it to do for you. But we also work with a lot of clients with budget restraints. And that's not uncommon. In the small business startup world, wherever you're at in your business, you're going to have some kind of budget, right? So sit down with that designer and say, hey, this is what I need. This is what I have to work with. Is there something that we can do with that? And just see if they're willing to work with you. See if they're willing to customize. See if they're willing to offer kind of any, like, maybe a few different a la carte services that can make up that website for you, or just some kind of customized package that meets your budget. Don't go broke trying to put up this website. Find a designer that will work with you and that will work within your means so that it's practical. Ultimately, the goal of your website is going to be to, attract new visitors, get some new customers. If you are some kind of business that brings in money, we want to be able to bring in new customers and increase your revenue, essentially get you good ROI on a website. But don't go completely broke. Don't spend your whole year's budget on a website if that just does not make sense for you, So know what your budget is going into it. Don't hesitate to ask if there can be any changes. If they throw out a price that's just completely unacceptable or undoable for you, just feel free to go back and say, hey, I can't do this. This is kind of what I had in mind. What can you do with that? And they might be willing to work with you. You never know until you ask. But, definitely try to find somebody who can customize that package to fit you and your needs and where you're at within your business and everything. The final question that I think is the absolute most important thing. I mean, all of these are pretty important, but one of the things you absolutely want to make sure of is asking if you have full and independent ownership of your website when that designer is done. So I cannot tell you the number of times that I've encountered situations where clients come to us and they want maybe a website redesigned, or they want us to work on a website, but they don't have access to all the parts of their website. So you have like hosting access, then you have the actual website access. Sometimes emails are set up somewhere else. So like it can be set up in a multitude of different ways. But there are a lot of times when clients come to us and they want work done, but they don't actually have personal access to some of these very important things. So you need to make sure, so a website designer, I'll explain this just a little bit. I don't want to take too much time, but I will explain that when you are setting up a website, you can either set it up to be hosted somewhere like GoDaddy or Bluehost. Those are like definitely two of the most popular ones. And you will have it on this main host, right? But you personally need to be able to have access to that. Everything should be set up under your name, your account, your credit card information, all of your stuff should be used to set those up. Because if they are set up under the designer's name or their company name or whatever else, when it comes time for you to have access to that, even if you plan on having the designer do maintenance, it's really important that you have independent ownership and access. Because if anything happens to that relationship or to that person in any way and you can't access your own stuff, it's going to be very challenging to get in and to prove that you own it, because it wasn't set up for you. It was set up for them. So you want something that's going to be handed over to you, that can be handed over to you as is the day it's done, with no restrictions. Even, like I said, even if you're going to have somebody maintaining this website for you, even if you plan on having this long-term relationship with this person, that's fine. They can be secondary on the access privileges. You should always be primary, and you should not need that person to access any of your stuff. Ever. Ever. That's my very emphatic statement, because it sometimes takes months to prove. I had a situation recently where I was working with a client and they didn't have access to their hosting account. It was a former employee. The employee was not responding to emails and was not responding to requests for assistance. And so I just kept having to badger the hosting company, and they're like, well, we need to see that your client actually has ownership of this. We need to see credit card statements. We need to see this. And so I just kept having to do this circle of emails going back and forth all the time, and it took 2 months before we finally got access to that hosting account. And we have it now, thankfully, but you don't have to go through that. What if there's some kind of urgent change that you need? It's just, oh, I could talk about this for days, but I'm not going to. I just want you to know that nobody should have the ability to hold your site hostage for any reason. You never know when relationships are going to go sour. So please make sure that you own your stuff and it's yours and it's only yours. That is, if you take nothing else away from this 20 minutes of chatting, please take that and just know that it's your site. It should be your site when it's done, nobody else's. And I hope that all of that was helpful. If anybody had any questions about any of that, you are welcome to ask me, leave a comment. I saw that we had a few viewers. Who was watching? Who was on here? I can't see. I don't know. Anyways, somebody's watching me, so hey. But I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was helpful. Like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to comment below, and then I will answer as soon as I can. And I hope you'll have a great rest of your Friday and a lovely weekend. We're going to have a little cold snap on Monday and Tuesday. Get excited about that. The high is going to be like 84 instead of, whatever the heck this is today. So that's all I got. Everyone have a great day.